Alright, so for this tutorial I wanted to do some quick airbrushing. These Shattered Dominion bases are actually pretty awesome, especially for the fact that you can airbrush them all at once. So just have them on the sprue. I'm taking some lead belcher. I prime them black, just with some cheap primer. It's good. I believe it is from, I get mine from Lowe's, but it's like paint and primer in one. And it's actually like $3 a can. It's pretty cheap, but it's awesome. And you can see I'm using the lead belcher. I thinned it with some airbrush thinner. And I can go cover all of the bases all at once. It's really nice because I can do a full set of these. Here I'm actually going to do 40 all at once because I'm doing my new Sky Dwarfs, my new Carriage on Overlords. So that's what this is for. But you can see it's pretty easy. Try to get overall coverage, give it a nice base coat. That's pretty much all there is to it. And here I'm going to go into the next steps here in just a second. Yeah, they look pretty nice. That is all sprayed in that lead belcher. Now what I have to do is actually do a wash on it. The metal is good, but it's like, it's too light. It's too shiny. Yeah, internet famous, I know. It's weird. So, to darken that up, I've already got some here. They're going to end up looking like this. Kind of like an older tarnished metal. But to do that, I just need a Seraphim Sepia from Games Workshop. So, just apply that with a wash brush. You can layer it on pretty thick. With all washes, I recommend putting some blue tack on the bottom. That way you don't have what almost just happened to me. It's just poster tack. You can get it in any store. Alright, and then you just layer it on pretty thick. We are going to do some more detail and some like cracked earth lava effects here in a little bit. But for this, you just fill in what you can. This brings out all the detail on the edges. I'm just going to do that on every single one. Let that dry, and then I'll come back and we'll do the edging and some of the other detail. There's certain details you have to do before we do any further airbrushing, and some that we have to do after the airbrushing. So, we'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, now that the bases are dry, we've got a nice old metal look. The problem is we've lost a lot of the edge detail. So what I'm going to do is pick out a lot of that, and right now it's a really nice bright metal. It's a Vallejo Model Air steel, but you can use, I believe they have aluminum, a silver, and a chrome that are pretty much the same. So I'm going to take a detail brush with a nice point, and I'm just going to paint in all the details. So what I'm going to do, these skulls, I figure they're so old, or they got merged into the earth, because this is the realm of metal. I figure they're not skulls anymore. They've become part of the earth. So I'm going to just pick out the details on those so that they show up better. And then on here, I'm going to pick out the very edge of each one of these tiles. It actually does help to show the detail. There you go. See that really come out? You may lose some of this when we do the airbrushing, but for now it'll actually look really good. And you'll go through the paint pretty quick, so you'll have to keep going back to your palette. You don't want to go too quickly. There we go. Nice contour. You see that shine too when I move it. It's nice because it actually shows up really well when you're playing a game. The problem with a lot of basing is it all kind of blends together after a while. Whereas if you have these nice edges, and you can't do this on everything because it looks a little weird, but on something like this, it's actually perfect. And what I can do as well, because I may come back and actually put in some terrain, but for now I can choose a few points, not too many, but any of these high points. Like the metal has just been exposed from some chipping or scratching. Not a lot. And then I'm going to continue around the side. I like to go all the way around the circle because it is raised above the edge. And you'll notice I'm not doing the cracks here, because in a minute I'm actually going to come in with the airbrush and hit the cracks and the crack all the way along the middle. with a nice red lava glow. So, see you in a second. Okay, we're back. And for this part, we need a few colors. So our base is going to be this bloody red. I believe you can use a thinned down version of Evil Sun Scarlet as well, if you're using Games Workshop colors. And then we need Flash Gets Yellow from Citadel Air. You can thin down regular Flash Gets Yellow, but the Citadel Air paints are far more finely ground, so they don't clog your airbrush. Just remember, if you are using Citadel Air paints, to still thin them, because they aren't actually as thin as you'd like them to be. And then to make sure that this isn't way too bright, we're going to go over it again with Orange Fire from Vallejo Game Air. Alright. Make sure you shake it up really good. I'm just going to put a few dots into my... Here, I'll hold this up for you. I'm going to just put a few dots into my airbrush. Not too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be enough. The reason I do that is because I don't like to waste my airbrush paint. And then, I should have a piece of paper here somewhere. That's a cheap one. We were doing some circuitry earlier, but I like keeping one for that reason. I like keeping one aside so that I don't encounter that. And that means that part of my airbrush is stuck open a little bit. So that's why nice white paper is good, because you can actually really see the overspray. So when you're doing something, you don't want that. So now that's a good indicator that I have to clean my airbrush or adjust the needle. So I will be right back, and I will show you how fine the needle needs to be. Okay, I'm back. So I switched. I was using an HPCS before, but at Adepticon this year I picked up an HPB Plus from Iwata when I was there. And this one actually has a 0.2 needle, which is amazing. So I'm going to grab my piece of paper again, and you'll kind of see that you'll really see a difference here. Now, that's not to say the HPCS is bad. I believe that my needle was pushing through the front nozzle a little too much. See? Nothing at all. And then I slowly pull back, and we're getting our color. Much better. Not that big splash. Okay. So I'm going to do this on the whole thing, but I'm going to slowly start in the big areas, get an idea of where I want my paint. You can see the wash is still a little wet. It's not a bad thing, because right now I can use the airbrush to actually push that around and get rid of any excess. Yep. See? Pushing the excess out. It collects in these cracks, and it takes forever to dry, actually. So it's not a bad thing if you're trying to go quickly. Right now I'm just using air. I'm not applying any paint. I'm just using the air to push this wash out. There we go. And now I'll go back again. See where my finger is? I'm kind of pulling back like that. I'm not pushing so much as I am using this as a throttle. Nice thing about a dual action airbrush. There. That's about where you want it. Nice thing is that edging I did before on the inside edge, it actually makes it look a little bit more glowy than it did before. Now I'm going to make sure to spray all this out. That's why I have one of these. And pull it all the way back until this all comes out. And I've got some cleaner that's already thin. I like to use thin cleaner. But I use Vallejo airbrush cleaner. You can see thinned for my overnight thing. Do a few drops in there. The reason for that is when I switch colors, I don't want this previous color to override the other color. Now I'm going to switch to that Flash Gets Yellow. This one is very, very, very potent. So you're going to want to be careful, and you're going to want to really plan where you airbrush. Okay. That's in there. It looks a little orange because of the previous color, but that's okay. That's the nice thing about doing any sort of lava effect. If it doesn't look uniform, then it still looks pretty natural. There we go. There's the yellow. That's my yellow. Alright. Another good test is when you're spraying. Just test on your hand a little bit. There we go. No, I'm not trying to go as large an area. I'm trying to go much finer than that. So I'm trying to get the very center of this large crack and the very center of these cracks. So I'm getting pretty close to the actual model. Just go close, and you're not going to want it's mostly air that's coming out, so you don't want to do too much at once. Otherwise, you get those spider webs. This thing is, you can keep going back over it if you want to build up that color. There, it's a little orange, but that's okay, because it'll actually provide a really nice transition for me. So the fact that I didn't quite rinse out my airbrush enough between colors actually helps me here. Because when I do rinse out and get that full flash gets yellow in there, it'll look much crisper. But that's a really nice lava effect. Yeah, it's a Citadel air paint, actually. Flash gets yellow. Yep. That's the way to do it. The only reason for that is that Citadel air, Flash gets actually is the brightest yellow I've been able to find with a good consistency. And the Citadel air version is far more finely ground. So now you can see there's far less in there than there was before. So the yellow should come out pretty nicely. Again, you can test before you spray the model. So I keep that piece of paper. Okay, get rid of that. There we go. And now I get that nice yellow. That's what I wanted. Now, one thing to bear in mind as well, this yellow is very faint. So you're going to actually need to do quite a few layers of it. There, that's much better. See that? I still have the orange, and I have a lot of yellow. Now, the other thing, too, is I don't like that much yellow. So that's why I have my orange fire, which is my next step. So again, I'm going to rinse this out pretty well with my thinner. If you got some Q-tips as well, you can use those to kind of clean the bowl out here. Kind of scrape the inside. But I don't need to do that here. So I'm going to shake this up really nicely. And then use some of that orange fire. The reason I use orange fire is that it's actually really thin orange paint. So it coats, it's like a varnish almost. It coats it very gently. So I'll kind of show you. You've seen that original color. This is the yellow. And now, that's my orange. It's kind of like, I can spray it over this whole red. It's just kind of like a glaze. So, again, I'm going to try to make sure to have just a small area to control my area. There we go. I'm going to spray that over everything I just did, but very lightly. Because it doesn't overpower, it kind of mellows out the color. And it doesn't take a lot. And there we go. That's it. That is a cracked earth Realm of Metal base. Not too complicated, but it turns out really nice. And that's it for this one. I'm hopefully going to do a lot more Shattered Dominion bases because I love them. But a lot of the time we don't have very good tutorials for them. So here's a Realm of Metal one. I'll probably do a Realm of Life one and some of the other mortal realms. But there are also a lot of terrain features like cracked ruins and stuff that if you have a good composition, the tutorial will help to enhance your army, because I see a lot of them where it's just ground with a dry brush or maybe a wash. That's not usually enough. Because if you do a really good job on the basing, it puts your miniature into the world that you're trying to have them in. And it adds just enough to where it makes the miniature look even better than it did before. So that's it for that, and I'll see you next time.